Welcome, everyone, to the Service Based Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Moreland, and today we're going to be talking about equipment basics in lawn care. We're going to be talking about mowers, trimmers, blowers, edgers, as well as going over the comparison between new and used equipment. So, if that sounds interesting to you, stay tuned, and we're going to get right into it. All right, new versus used equipment. Let's talk about it. So, new equipment, of course. New equipment has a lot of benefits. Like, of course, when you're buying new equipment, you know its history. It's that it has zero history, right? Or even something that's lightly used. Lightly used kind of falls into that new category, like something that's barely, been used, right? So, of course, you know its history. It hasn't been used, or it's been very, very lightly used. It, in theory, won't have any issues or problems, right? It should be ready to go. Like, you shouldn't have any potential issues with it. When you get, of course you can, but in theory it won't, right? That's one of the best benefits of it, is that it should be ready to go. You know its history. In theory it should have, no hours on the no hours on the hour meter, right? That piece of equipment, it's brand new. And of course, when you're buying a new piece of equipment, chances are the technology is going to be newer, and so that can definitely be a benefit as well. That can be a downside, depending on what it is that you're buying. Like a truck, for example, buying a super new truck, it's gonna be good in a lot of ways having that new technology. But if there's something wrong with that new technology, doesn't work properly or something, if there's a recall, that of course sucks. So that's of course only if you're buying, if you're buying top of the line new. But anyways, so those are kind of your benefits of new equipment. Those are kind of all. I think when you think new equipment, those are the benefits you think about. It has no history, ain't got no hours on it. It's got the new tech, right? Downsides, of course, are it is more expensive to go and buy new equipment. Now, that's the main reason for buying used equipment, is you're going to save money. Another kind of thing, side note, is that it's not as eco-friendly to buy new equipment, but just I feel like it's not as much of a thing when you're buying. Well, I guess it is a thing, but still, it's not quite as eco-friendly, but whatever, right? So yeah, that's kind of your benefits and your downsides. You want, when you're buying a new piece of equipment, you take it home, make sure everything works properly before you go out into a job. Test it out at home or at the shop, whatever. Make sure it all runs properly and smoothly. Learn about that new piece of equipment. Do some research before you even buy that new piece of equipment. Any new piece of equipment, for that matter. Doesn't matter if it's used or new. Make sure that you're researching about it, learning up about it, and then of course with the new piece of equipment, take care of it. Treat it nicely. Make sure you're up to date on your maintenance all the time. To really take care of that new piece of equipment, so that new piece of equipment lasts longer. Like, you don't want to mistreat your equipment, and that new piece of equipment you have to replace, a couple years sooner, when you could have taken better care of it and last longer and save you money in the long run. Also to save you the headache of having to buy new equipment. So take care of your equipment. Make sure it's up to date on its maintenance and everything. Yeah. Used equipment. Before you buy any new used equipment, you want to make sure that it, you ensure its condition, right? You know what you're getting yourself into. If it is, it works good, make sure it works good. If you're getting into it and it needs, some work done, then just make sure that that, ensure that, and use those things as a bargaining chip when you're buying that used equipment, especially when you're buying it from a private seller. They've got listed at 10 grand, and there's they probably should list everything that's wrong with the ad. You get there and something else wrong with it. It's bargaining chip. Okay, how about 9 grand because it's got, I don't know, this thing wrong with it, right? Now, of course, you can't really nickel and dime people. There's some expectations, of course. That equipment, that piece of machinery might not be ready to go, but again, just make sure that you know what condition it's in, before you buy it, and then compare that to when you actually see the equipment, piece of equipment, And again, same thing with new equipment, like I already mentioned, is just learn up about that piece of equipment. Make sure that you know how to know theoretically how to operate it. About common issues it might have, things of that nature. Especially with something bigger like a mower, read up on it, make sure that it's worth your investment, right? And something I definitely recommend, depending on, either you do your own maintenance or you don't, but definitely go and get like a full good tune up on it. I just bought a snowblower recently for the winter time. It's coming. A couple months ago I bought that, and I took it into the shop, and I knew I needed the carb clean, and I just didn't want to have to do it myself. Minnesota weather can be kind of unpredictable, and so I just took it to the shop. I was like, you guys take care of it, because it was going to be something I was going to be doing in my free time, or my free time anyways, and I needed that thing to work. I wanted to make sure that it would work. I didn't want to accidentally break something. I was like, take it to the shop. You guys, got rid of my headache, right? So I was like, you guys, take care of it, clean it up for me, tune it up for me. Got everything, greased, lubricated, all that stuff. My own like push mower that I've got. I usually do, my own plugs and oil and air filter, right? Like, that's all stuff I can do. That's not real difficult to do, right? Anything else that's, broken or needs replacing, like, I can look at that, inspect that all myself. But with something a little more complicated even, I just took it to the shop. As you guys deal with this, way easier on me. But I definitely recommend, like, any used equipment you get, you take it, make sure it's all properly tuned up and everything. Like, next year, I probably won't take and get the snowblower tuned up. Every few years I probably will, but I'm probably not going to do that. Maybe I will next year. I guess we'll see what kind of condition it's in next year, but definitely recommend you go and get it properly tuned up. Don't skip out on that used equipment maintenance either. Of course, kind of the flip side of the benefits and downsides of new equipment is used equipment. Of course, buying used equipment is going to be cheaper, and it's more eco-friendly. Downsides, you don't always know, you probably don't know really its history. Like, you might, depending upon what it is, but you don't really know its history. Of course, it's going to have more hours on it. It's going to have higher potential for something to go wrong with it. And I guess depending on how you look at it, it's going to be older technology. That might not necessarily be a upside depending upon what it is and how you look at it. But anyways, just things to keep in mind. Kind of the flip side of new equipment is used equipment. I think definitely when you're first getting started, it is super okay to buy used equipment. In the long run, or especially as you get like more and more, as your company begins to grow, I think buying new equipment is definitely worth it. But I think when you're starting small and you're starting on a budget, I definitely encourage you to buy used equipment. It's probably worth it. You might have a bad experience, and that totally sucks. But especially with certain things, like, if you're getting your first mower and you find a good deal for a used one, go pick up that used one, right? Or for something you just, you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on, So those are kind of the matchup between new and used equipment. So, mowers. This is your main equipment piece when it comes to lawn care, is your mower. You're going to be using it every single day that you're cutting grass. No ifs or whats about it. Without it, you're not cutting grass, right? You need a mower. So, the first thing, before you things to consider, I guess, right? Some general things are, just do your research. Think about, do you really need that new piece of equipment? It might be, like, oh, I want this new mower, this new big mower, but do you really need it? Think about that. Do you really need that piece of equipment? One thing that I know, Mike Andes, again, if you don't listen to Mike Andes or watch Mike Andes, definitely encourage it. If you're in the landscaping lawn care industry, he's a really great resource and YouTuber. Well, he makes videos, right, for lawn care landscaping guys, about, especially on the business side of things. And one thing that I believe he said, no quote me, it's been a while, but I think he said, when he's thinking about buying a new piece of equipment, he recommends that 30% of your jobs, you should be able to use that new piece of equipment. So if you're thinking about buying a bigger mower, for example, you should be able to use that bigger mower on at least 30% of your business, 30% of your properties, So that's a little something to keep in mind when you're thinking about, do I need this new piece of equipment, right? Other things to consider when you're looking add a new piece of equipment is your budget. What kind of budget do you want to have? How much do you want to spend on this mower, right? Are you buying it in cash, or are you going to make payments on it? That kind of a thing. And then also think about that new piece of equipment. What kind of maintenance are you going to have to do on it? If I'm going from just a residential push mower where the only real maintenance is, sharpening the blade, of course, cleaning the machine, right? Spark plugs, oil, and air filter. Like, those are your main pieces of, your main maintenance things. You also, beginning of the season or whatever, inspect your tires and your pull cord and all that stuff, right? But those are like your main maintenance things, like regular maintenance things. But if you're going to go to a bigger mower with a bigger engine, what kind of, self-propelled mower, what kind of new maintenance we have to do? Your usual things like your pull cords and your wheels. You also want to be inspecting your belts, maybe cleaning out around your belts, right? You might have an oil filter now that you need to change and replace. So those are the other things that you will want to think about and research about that new piece of equipment. Is what kind of things am I going to have to do now? What new maintenance things am I going to have to do on this new piece of equipment? So the first kind of mower, everyone should have one in their lineup, is a push mower. Of course, push mower, you're going to have basically 21-inch size, working width, right? It's probably going to be 20, 21, 22. They do make smaller ones, of course. They make like 15-inch, but like, you don't want to use that probably. You can also get push mowers. Well, those are technically self-propelled, so those are another category. Of course, like I kind of was stated before, those really have simple maintenance. Again, your blade, your cleaning, your plug, your oil, and your filter, and then just other inspecting. Everything works, right? And it's the smallest to work with, but you can use it on any size yard in theory, right? It'll take you a really long time, but you can use it on any size yard, which is why you always have it. You're super small. Like, a lot of times the properties around my neighborhood here that I live in, and that I do a lot of lawns around here, I have to have push mower. Like, there's no way I can avoid having a push mower with some of the lawns that I do, because they all have like a 22-inch gate, and so that mower, it fits, and there's no way I can fit anything bigger back there through that gate. So definitely recommend everyone have a push mower. They make push mowers, or not necessarily a push mower, but a smaller mower. Maybe push, maybe self-propelled, which is actually what we're going to get into right now, which is a self-propelled mower. Your push mowers are technically different than your self-propelled mowers. Your push mowers are in my opinion, push mowers are the ones that you have to physically push, and you are doing all the work of moving the mower. Your self-propelled mowers, on the other hand, are going to be like your technically, there are other ones that they move themselves, and you walk behind. Maybe add a little bit of force if it's like 20-inch, 21, 22-inch self-propelled mowers. Those you might kind of push them a little bit to speed things along, but those are going to at least have some kind of self-driving, self-propelled system in them. Of course, the push mower is going to be cheaper, but your self-propelled mowers are going to be nicer. You're not having to do all of the work with them. So that kind of leads into, like, self-propelled. I feel like it's actually a pretty small category when I think about it. When I think self-propelled, I think your 20, 21, 22, the few 25-inch mowers that exist out there, and then your 30-inch mowers. And those, in my opinion, are all the self-propelled. And that kind of grows from there. You get into your walk-behind mowers, which are like proper. They usually have like the proper. They don't have like the bar actuator. They have like handle actuators. I think that's the best way to put that. All of those I consider walk-behinds, but grouping all those together into one category of your self-propelled and your walk-behind, we're just going to call them all self-propelled for the sake of this. You're going to have more maintenance, again, like I said, things like belts and gears, making sure everything, all those belts and whatever work, right? And then, of course, they're less work, to actually, like, move the mower than, push mower, but they're also, generally going to be cheaper than, like, a stander when it comes to, like, your 36 inch and up, so something to think about. You can also get sulkies, I believe they're called. that attach to your walk behinds that you can actually technically ride them. Personally, not my cup of tea, but they exist. So if you're looking for a budget option, you want a wider work with, but you don't want to spend the tons of money on a stander, walk behinds are an option, and those are definitely great, like growth option. A lot of people sometimes will recommend that, when you're transitioning from like a push, like 21-inch mower to, maybe you want like 48-inch or something, that, maybe you get like a 36-inch walk behind. So it's an option out there. You might have an easier time finding older walk behinds for your working with than you would with like a stander. So for me, if I'm gonna get a stander right now, I would be getting a 36-inch, right? If anything, but for me, at least in my area, there are not a lot of like low cost options, like on Facebook Marketplace at least, for stand-on mowers of 36-inch. They're all like the few that are on there, they're like practically brand new. But like 36-inch walk behinds, there are at least 3 or 4 that I've seen on there that are, they're like $1,000 or so, right, give or take. So that's a much more affordable option than, an $8,000 brand new freaking stand-on mower. So that, of course, is kind of just the things about, your self-propelled, your walk behinds, and such. So the next kind of mower is your riding mowers or your lawn tractors. Those are the same thing. For the sake of this, we're going to call them riding mowers, not to be confused with the zero turn. We're going to call them riding mowers. Again, it's the same thing as like a lawn tractor. So really, these are not used in the commercial space. You won't really see them used out in the field cutting grass for like a commercial business. Like you could use them. And I wouldn't say that it's a terrible idea, especially if you're trying to, ball out on a budget. But, of course, they're made for residential for the most part. And so with that, they're not going to be built the same as a commercial piece of equipment. So that is just something you can keep in mind. You can get a bigger, of course, they're physically, going to be bigger than something like a stand-on. Or, I guess even a zero turn. I don't know. They're about the same kind of size. But they are, just a bigger machine. Again, they're not really commercial quality, but you can use them. And one thing about them is you can't, at least that I know of, I'm sure there are ones where they do mulch, but I know most, like lawn tractor riding mowers, you have to just side discharge the clippings or bag them. You can get a bagger system. But I have not seen at least like a mulching system in like, just like the browsing I do on Facebook Marketplace. So that's something to keep in mind. You can use them, especially if you're in like a transition period. You can usually get like a 36-inch or 42-inch, riding mower on Facebook Marketplace for a few $100s. So, pretty cheap. If you really have some bigger properties that you're looking to use, and you just don't have the money to go and buy like a stand-on machine, but you want, to have a kind of a transition machine for like, a year in your business, it's not a super bad idea to go and get one, and use one. It wouldn't be my first choice personally, but it's an option, right? So, yeah, that's riding mowers. All right, now we're on to the commercial mowers. We're on to the big boys, right? We've got your stand-on mowers next. And you can get these ranging from at least 32 inches. I want to say there are a couple of 32 inches out, 32-inch stand-ons out there, but generally like 36 inch is going to be on the smaller end. And I believe you can usually get up to 60 or 72 inch. I don't know if they make 72 inch, but they for sure make, I think, 60 inch stand-on mowers. You have lots of different brands and price points and features when it comes to stand-ons. Some brands that are out there. You've got Skag and Toro, Exmark. Yeah, Skag, Toro, Exmark are got bigger ones. You've got Ferris. You've got Steel's getting into the game here soon. You've got the Wrights, you've got Bradleys, now you've got Grasshoppers, right? So you've got a lot of different options out there. That's a very small amount of the every option out there. There's lots of different companies and brands that make stand-on mowers that exist. I believe, Kubota also makes stand-on mowers. I'm trying to think of more brands off the top of my head, but that's who I've got. So that's who we're going with. Some brands have specifically Toro and Grasshopper. I believe Grasshopper. I think this is from my best guess. Do your own research on this. If this is something you might be interested in actually doing, is I actually have different attachments that you can use. So you could, have your one machine that you use year round. You can use it for things like snow throwing, or you can maybe use it for, don't quote me on using it for like aerating, but like I know Grasshopper, I believe that their stand-on mowers you'll be able to use with snow thrower attachments on them. Those are pretty new, but yeah, I believe so. And I'm pretty sure the same thing with Toro. Again, don't quote me on that. Your stand-on mowers, they side discharge by default. They usually have, a side discharge thing. You can usually get mulch plates, mulch kits for them, and as well as baggers, grass catchers you can usually get for your stand-ons as well. Comparing a stand-on to a zero turn is one of the benefits, or some of the benefits with stand-ons is that you kind of have a better view of what's in front of you. You're not like sitting so far back where you're actually, you're sitting, you have like all your legs and everything in front of you. You're standing on, you can kind of peek over if you need to see what's in front of you. But you kind of have a better view of everything that's in front of you with a stand-on mower. And really another benefit is if you have like back pain, sitting all day can hurt your back even more. So with the stand, of course, you're standing all day, and that can be better for your back. So that's kind of the rundown on stand-on mowers. Everything that I could at least kind of think of. Then we got zero turns, similar to a stand-on in a lot of ways. They come in commercial. They're commercial mowers usually. Like they do make residential zero turns, but oftentimes they are commercial. There are lots of different brands out there. Usually they're going to be 48 inches, 42, 48, somewhere in there, and up. Again, they do make 36 inches. I've seen, especially in like the residential kind, they make smaller ones, but usually they're going to be used for your bigger working with. And again, same thing as a stand-on. They're going to side discharge by default, but you can buy mulch kits, mulch plates, baggers, things like that. So that's kind of the rundown on zero turns. They operate in somewhat similar ways. Zero turns, of course, are going to be bigger, but again, you get a wider working with those usually. Like that's usually what they're used for. So yeah, zero turns. So before you go and buy any mower, you should do your research. This is again something I'm going to keep preaching, is do your research. Learn about how that mower performs. Recently I've been looking into, if I was going to buy like a stand-on, I'd honestly probably buy a Bradley. And Bradleys are cheap. They are, usually your stand-ons start at least $8,000. A Bradley you can get for around $5,000. So, okay, how do they save $3,000 in making the mower? Is one of the biggest. It's like, how do they save so much money? How are they so much cheaper? So what do? You go and you research. You learn, okay, how do they perform? One thing I've found with the Bradley mowers in my research is that the cut quality isn't really the greatest by default. Using like the blades that come with the mower, they're not the greatest. So that's one thing. If I was going to buy that mower, I might want to look into getting better blades. Again, when you're looking into a new piece of equipment and researching, you want to learn about the features. What things does this mower have? What things does it not have? Going back to that Bradley mower, the Bradley mower is pretty bare bones. It doesn't have any cup holders or any lights, and I don't even know if the darn thing comes with an hour meter. I don't think it does. So that's another way that they cut costs, is by maybe including less features. Another thing too is gas tanks are harder to. They're not the greatest gas tanks. Another thing. So do your research about the mower. Learn about the pros and the cons of it. What things are out there for that mower, right? Again, features. When you're doing your research, read forums, watch YouTube, and if you know people in the business, ask around. Again, they'll use your resources around you. Don't just, watch the promo videos from the company, get other people's opinions, read other their experiences with that mower. There are tons of forums online that you can read about. Kind of read about whatever you want to read about when it comes to lawn mowing and landscaping. YouTube, of course, is a great resource for learning about other people's experiences. What other people went through. And when you start to see, common patterns, those are going to be definitely things that are going to be there, right? Other things too. This kind of goes back to where I was talking about the features and the performance. Is what things are you going to need or want when you get that mower? If I get that Bradley mower, and the cut quality isn't the greatest, one thing I might really need is better blades or better system. Again, other things would be, does this mower have, how is the mulch kit, mulch system, mulch kit, that you're going to get if you're going to mulch, bagging, how's bagging going to work, how much is the bagger, things like that. What are other things that you're going to want or need when you get that mower? The next topic is string trimmers. So a lot of this information I'm going to give you is kind of also applying to blowers and edgers, at least a little bit. So we're going to go through string trimmers, and probably blowers and edgers are going to be shorter, just so you're aware. But we're going to get into string trimmers right now. So some general information is that your string trimmers come in straight shaft and they come in curved shaft. Your curved shaft are usually cheaper. I don't know why, but they are. And I personally recommend straight shaft. I think pretty much you ask anybody, they prefer straight shaft, and that also applies to edgers. Usually people prefer the straight shaft, although I feel like edgers maybe not quite as big of a deal, but definitely recommend a straight string trimmer. One really commonly used and cool tool out there when it comes to string trimmers and edgers as well is this thing called a Darwin's grip. If you search up Darwin's grip online, it should hopefully come up, and that helps, especially when you're taller. It helps kind of to reduce the back pain that you might experience when using a trimmer. It kind of gives you a higher up grip. So when you're looking into getting a nice trimmer, and maybe you get a trimmer in your back, your back's not your friend, that's something to look into getting. So let's talk about electric string trimmers here. So before I had my current string trimmer, I had a 20 volt battery electric Black & Decker string trimmer. That, comparatively to a gas trimmer, that thing sucks. So if you have a residential electric thing that has just like 20 volt batteries, just be aware it's when you get a gas trimmer, you get a nicer trimmer, you're not gonna want to go back. So just another thing about those things are really not very powerful. I don't really know about like your bigger battery, 48 volts. I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people talk about them being okay, and people love them. At least that I've seen. Some guys who I've watched who use them are Copper Creek Cuts. He's a landscape YouTuber down in Florida, and I think it's Blades of Grass Lawncare, I believe. I think that's his name. I watched him in a minute, but he also uses electric equipment. And there's not really a lot of complaints that I see from those guys, at least about them. But of course, when you're getting electric equipment, one thing is that you're limited. You are limited to how you can only do so many as how many batteries you have. That's the limiting factor when it comes to electric equipment. But I think as far as I know, like the 48 volt battery like operating equipment work okay. But personally, a lot of 90% of the guys out there are pretty much like, gas equipment people. So your cheaper homeowner options that exist out there. I had one of these when it came to string trimmers. I bought last year it was a Troy-Bilt string trimmer that I got from Menards for like $100 or something like that, because I had like 3 20-volt batteries, 2 or 3 20-volt batteries for the string trimmer that I had, and I would run out of battery with them when I was like doing more than 2 properties a day or like a night, because I was going after work. So like when I'd run out of battery, and then I would be very limited. I had to like space out my properties and when I was like doing jobs. And so one day I actually had to rush to like get all my lawns in because I was going somewhere, and I like just found out that day basically, right? And so I went out and bought a gas string trimmer. I destroyed that gas string trimmer, and by the end of the year, it did not work properly. So, of course, your cheaper homeowner options are cheaper, like I just said, right? So that's something to keep in mind. They're not going to be built as nicely, and they don't last as long. At least in my experience, they're not meant to be beat up so much. They're not meant to last that long. And I will fully admit that I probably could have done a better job by using better fuel. Probably would have helped. And I haven't really tinkered around with that. I still have the engine, and that came on that one, and I haven't tinkered around with it too much. But probably, I could get it to work again in theory, but I'm not going to. It is, however, one thing I did notice is actually more complicated to start than like my nice commercial string trimmer that I have now, which I don't know. It's not like a super big deal, but technically was. So I don't really recommend using those unless you kind of have to. When you're starting out, it's okay to use those. Treat them nice. Put good fuel in them. Don't put your crappy canned pre-mixed fuel in those. Go out, mix your own fuel, get the non-ethanol fuel, mix your own fuel oil mix, treat them nicely, and you'll probably have a better experience than I did. And yeah, that should be good for you, But I definitely wouldn't recommend like planning on using these for more than a season or two, especially when you're doing 20 lawns a week-ish, right, or more, because that's about what I did last year. Was about not even 20 lawns a week, and then again I burned through the thing. Commercial equipment, string trimmers. They're meant to run all day. Simple as that. They are meant to run all day long. They, in theory, should be pretty easy to start. Kind of your big. I feel like your biggest brands are your Steel and your Steels and Echoes. Those are the main few that will butt heads. Sometimes Red Max gets thrown in there. I've seen Red Max thrown in there on Lawn Talk a lot. Lawn Talk, like Lawn TikTok. Lawn Talk thrown on there, especially recently with like fall cleanups and blowers. People talk about those. I've seen Red Max thrown in there quite a bit recently, but yes, your Steel and Echo are kind of like the big competitors when it comes to commercial equipment. I personally have the Steel Combi system, which is what I'm going to talk about now. And basically, Steel Combi system allows you to buy a motor. Buy a small motor, and you can put different attachments on there. So you can actually run a string trimmer, or you could run a blower. In theory, I personally would not a big fan, but you could run a blower, or you could run a stick edger. So it does save you some money. Of course, you're only going to have one engine, but the downside of that is that you are relying on one engine unless you buy multiple combi system, engines. So, if you're a solo operator, I totally recommend it. That's what I have. My Steel has lasted me all season with basically no problems once I learned how to start the darn thing. So I definitely recommend it if it's something that you are maybe thinking about, or you're trying to save some money and get like a trimmer and an edger. That engine that I bought, I think I want to say was like around $400-ish, but then like the attachment for the string trimmer was only $100. So I basically saved a bunch of money when I went to get an edger, and it was only like $150 or whatever it cost me. I saved the money having to buy, that new engine on top of it. Again, the downside of that is that you are relying on just one engine. That thing had better work, but I personally haven't had any issues with my Steel Combi system, so it's definitely something that I would recommend I recommend at least looking into. So the last piece of equipment that you're definitely going to need, you can get away without this, but you should probably be like something you think about getting when you're starting out, or at least into your middle of the first season or second season, is blower. You want to clean. You can get away with cleaning up the clippings with a broom or with your lawnmower. Using the the blade is kind of a fan to clean off the sidewalk, but a blower is definitely nice to have. You know, a lot of the same things apply for string trimmers. You know, one thing I think I'm pretty sure about blowers, though, that does compare differently to string trimmers and edgers, is that your top models, at least that I found, are not as powerful as your top models of a gas-powered blower. I don't know if I mentioned I was talking about electric. I had to think about that for a second. So like your electric blowers are just not as powerful, and of course you're limited due to your amount of batteries. So to clear grass clippings, you're totally fine to use electric blower. I just want to state that I have a 20-volt Black & Decker blower, and for cleaning off the sidewalks, it's fine. It is perfect. But for anything more than that, it's not good. So something to keep in mind if you are thinking about using an electric blower is that it's just not going to be very powerful. It's going to be fine for cleaning off the sidewalk, but that's kind of where it applies. A cheaper homeowner blower, I personally have no experience with. I've never ran a cheaper, kind of like $100 blower before, or $150 like handheld blower before. I've never ran one of these. I really don't have a lot of experience, but I kind of assume things are similar to a trimmer. They're not going to be as nice. They're not commercially built, but they're cheaper and they should work for you. Take good care of them, right? Again, here we go to commercial, right? Your commercial blowers, same thing as string trimmers. They're meant to run all day, right? They should hopefully be easier to start. They are very powerful. That's another thing too. Especially when you get into like your backpack blowers, they're pretty powerful, and they will move leaves, and they will have no problems, pushing leaves out the yard, pushing grass clippings out the sidewalk. No problem. They're really meant to move things. Your cheaper ones, not so much. Your cheaper, things, but like your nice backpack blowers, they'll move stuff, right? So, definitely long term, I recommend, especially if you do cleanups, I definitely recommend a backpack blower. It's what I'll be getting personally next season. Upgrade from that little blower I got. But yeah, your backpack blowers meant to run all day, pretty nice, and they're very powerful machines. Last but certainly not least are your edgers. So this is something you can get into after a year or so in the business. I just got my first edger this year, and this is my third year. I actually just picked it up this fall. So basically year 4 of my business, I will be offering edging. So some things is that push edgers are something that exists, but people don't really use those commercially. You can get them at like Menards or something. They take up a lot of room. That's another reason that people don't really use them, is they're big machines, and people don't really use them because you can just get a stick edger. So stick edgers, they come in gas and electric. I don't think they make a lot of like residential stick edgers. I'm sure they exist, but I don't really know of any like that. When you go to Menards and you look for an edger, most of the time they're gonna be like a walk behind big edger. They're not gonna be like a small stick edger, right? So they're mostly commercial that I've seen. You can get curved and straight shaft edgers. Your curved shaft are cheaper, but the main argument I've heard for like straight shaft is that they have more maneuverability. I think I'm saying that word right. They're easier to move around and like manipulate around things like cars. So something to think about. Again, I got a straight shaft one. It's fine for me so far. I've only done a couple of jobs with it, and it's worked perfectly fine for me. And again, like I don't really know. I think same thing kind of applies. The gas versus electric comparison is the same thing with string trimmers. Some people really like them. Other people are diehard gas engine people. So anyways, I feel like that episode was not my best, but we got through all the information that I wanted to get through. I hope that someone got some value out of this. This is really like a very basic, kind of like the main, kind of the equipment. Again, the equipment basics, equipment 101. Just some things to keep in mind. You don't know what you need, or you don't know all the different things. So it's kind of just a basic introduction into equipment for your business. So kind of to recap, you've got different type. You're gonna need mower, you're gonna need a trimmer, you're gonna need a blower, and an edger is a great tool to have, but you don't necessarily need it. You got tons of different kinds of mowers, tons of different brands. Do your research. Same thing with string trimmers and blowers and edgers. You've got different brands. Do your research. Think about your budget and all that stuff. Make sure that it's actually a good piece of equipment for you, and then go ahead and make that purchase. And that's that. And again, new versus used equipment. Each of them have their benefits and their downsides. Make sure you're really just, again, doing your research into that general piece of equipment. Just learn about the piece of equipment you're going to buy. Make sure that equipment, if you're getting used, make sure that it is up to your standard. Make sure it's been, as far as you can tell, make sure it's been treated nicely and everything, and don't buy a total piece of junk unless you're getting it for real cheap. So, that's really all I've got for you guys today. I definitely don't feel this has been my best episode, but that's okay. That's all right. There will be a vlog coming out this Friday, so stay tuned for that. Take you guys along on a little bit of some jobs that day. I didn't like filming the field, but Anyways, vlog coming out Friday. My first vlog in a long time. So I hope you guys enjoy next week. I don't know what I'm doing, but there'll be a new podcast next week. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, if you guys got some value, learn something out of this, throw me a thumbs up, comment down below anything that you guys have to say. I appreciate any feedback and love that you guys give me. And stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.